Hello, and welcome, my beautiful followers of Adam's Word, to the second video on the drinks of Fallout. Since there are so many drinks in the games, this will be a multi-part series because while the focus of this video is on all the non-alcoholic beverages that were not covered in the soft drinks video, there is a metric butt ton of alcoholic beverages to go over. So I will get to those hopefully fairly soon. This video though is going to cover all sorts of beverages from coffee to the many kinds of water, which I promise is way more interesting than you initially think, to all the teas available in Fallout 76 and so much more. Go grab one of your favorite beverages. I have a birch beer next to me as I speak, and let's talk about weird and mundane drinks of Fallout. Always remember that I have a comment highlight at the end of the video that goes over some notable comments from my previous video, which was on the melee weapons of Fallout, so stick around to the end. Black coffee was a consumable that was added to New Vegas in the Honest Hearts add-on. It is only ever shown as an empty mug, identical to all the other mugs that can be found in the game, and can be crafted by the player. It requires a coffee mug, a coffee pot, coyote tobacco chew, and a honey mesquite pod, which, those of you with a high perception might have noticed that none of those ingredients are actual coffee. I can't think of any beverage with one of the main ingredients being tobacco that I would honestly ever want to try, but beggars can't be choosers in a nuked Mojave. Giving only a small HP boost, it increases intelligence by 2 for 1 minute and lowers agility by 1 for a minute as well, which I'm pretty sure is exactly how coffee works in real life. It lowers thirst, starvation, and sleep in survival mode, and unlike most other items, will heal immediately upon consumption. With a maxed out survival skill, it can actually boost intelligence by 6 and decrease agility by 3, which is a very substantial buff. Interestingly, the number of black coffees that one can make is dependent on how many coffee pots you have in the inventory. Only one coffee pot can be used to make one black coffee, but the coffee pot itself is not consumed, unlike the other ingredients, including the mug for some reason. And just when you thought a Fallout entry about black coffee wasn't interesting enough, you can buy black coffee by none other than Joshua Graham himself, which might make him the worst Mormon in the entire wasteland. Also because, you know, he helped Kaiser commit genocide and killed countless people or something. But maybe Brother Graham found a loophole since his black coffee recipe doesn't include any coffee. Modern commandments require modern solutions, I suppose. The peculiar and suspicious town of Covenant in Fallout 4 has a Mr. Handy named Deezer, who makes a lemonade that at first glance doesn't seem odd, but the more you dig into this beverage, the more questionable it gets. With the appearance of a repurposed purified water container that has the text scribbled out with a pen, it cannot be crafted and is only bought from Deezer himself. And by bought, I mean he just gives it to you for free. One would assume that a lemonade would be made of a few common ingredients: lemons, water, sugar, maybe even a little something extra to make things interesting. The thing is, we are only ever given a little information, including the fact that it is made from 4 ingredients. And Deezer himself, when advertising for the lemonade, says that there is less mute fruit, fewer rads, but the same great taste. So already we know that other fruits are involved in this lemonade. Most notably, however, are the comments from others that remark that the lemonade tastes odd, and get this, the lemonade does not lower thirst in survival mode, raising serious questions as to what exactly Deezer's lemonade is. It does heal for 50 HP, but moldy food also offers an HP boost, so that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. The only other lemonade in the game is in Fallout 76, and it is completely bereft of any lemons. I'm beginning to think that lemons did not survive the apocalypse. Water, sugar, and acid are the only ingredients for this beverage that increases AP and HP by just a little bit. Lemonade can be bought from Mr. Squeeze, a yellow Mr. Handy at a lemonade stand that is one of the many random encounters of the game. Fallout 76 has a number of so-called simple teas that usually consist of water, wood, and a plant that is boiled in the water to make the tea. They are all shown as being contained in mason jars in a variety of colors with different effects. All the teas also heal for a bit of HP, dose for some rads, and satisfy a small amount of thirst as well. Ash Rose tea will increase charisma by 1, Aster tea requires firecracker berries and sugar and increases intelligence by 1. Bloodleaf tea increases disease resistance by 5. Fern flower will increase strength by 1. Gut shrooms will increase perception by 1. And soot flower tea will increase max AP by 10 for some time. All these teas are very simple to make, so they can be an easy way to buff a certain stat if needed for only a limited time. Fallout Tactics gives us an interesting beverage that looks like it is an old style bottle and is a very lustery golden color. The in-game description says that the bottle contains a heavy viscous liquid that reflects light in a way that is mesmerizing. It is only available from the special encounter called Gas Station, where a merchant known as Grandma will sell the elixir. It has a special effect of increasing HP by 15 and endurance by 1 permanently. So this random encounter can be quite beneficial, although the elixir is sold for the high price of 5,000 ring pulls. If you are too poor for that, you can try your hand at stealing the elixir instead, which given the beneficial effects of the drink, I think would be justified. The Elixir of Life is from the centuries-old legend of an elixir that was meant to be used in alchemy, that could either turn lead into gold, or could cure all diseases and give eternal life. The elixir in the game may be referring to both of these legends, since it has a deep gold color and increases HP and endurance, which a higher endurance in turn increases HP. There are a number of juices that can be made in Fallout 76 that uses a variety of ingredients for different effects. Blackberry juice sounds delicious and is made with just wild blackberries and water, replenishing HP and AP for several seconds. Carrot flower nectar uses said carrot flower and boiled water, replenishing HP and increasing perception by 1. Corpse seed juice, other than sounding super delicious, is made with water and corpse seeds, increasing max AP by 10 for 30 in-game minutes. Cranberry juice is made with everyone's favorite kind of cranberries, diseased cranberries, and is a wonderful brown color. Why can't we just have normal cranberry juice? It replenishes HP while also increasing XP earned by 2% for 30 minutes. Firecracker berry juice is made with the firecracker berries and water and has a cool effect of increasing critical damage by 10% for 30 minutes. Melon juice is made with lemons of course and replenishes AP for 30 minutes, which is one of the longest HP restoring consumables in the game. Mute fruit juice will heal HP and increase agility by 1. Tarberry juice is actually a kind of nice purple color and replenishes AP for 15 seconds, and Tato juice will increase max AP for 30 minutes as well. Potatoes are one of the mysterious vegetables in Fallout, and in another video I will look into them with more depth, as they seem to be a combination of potatoes and tomatoes, which is a very strange mix. It is established though that tomatoes do exist in their pre-war state, since the courier in Fallout New Vegas can be told by Ada Strauss to take a bath in tomato juice. Fallout 4's Far Harbor introduced a new consumable that rides the line between being a drink and being a food: raw tree sap. Found in multiple locations around the island, some trees have been tapped and have a collection bucket attached where someone is harvesting the tree sap. What kind of tree the sap comes from is hard to say since most of the trees are leafless, but the sap is represented as a plain glass bottle that is corked. This can be eaten, drank, applied intravenously. I don't actually know the best way to consume pure raw sap, but you have the option and it will increase HP by 20 with just 2 rads. What I find interesting is that in survival mode, it will not decrease hunger or thirst and has one of the highest chances of contracting disease, which definitely does not sound right. Tree sap has antimicrobial properties, and if anything, this should have one of the lowest chances of contracting a disease, particularly in its raw form. The NPC known as Zealot Ware, who was a Far Harbor trapper turned child of Adam, is not blessed with the gift to resist radiation, and has created a beverage that is created from raw sap. Requiring only raw sap, it uses some sort of distillation process and comes out on the other side as a drink that increases HP by 100 and decreases rads by 100 as well. The bottle is rather plain like the raw sap, but it has a label that says Ware Brew and has some simple Child of Adam symbols and decoration. It can be crafted using a recipe after completing the Trial of Brother Devon quest, and whatever this amazing distillation process is, also decreases the chance of disease in survival mode to match all the other drinks. If you thought we were done with Fallout 76 beverages, think again. This game really goes all out in regards to consumables, and there are an insane number of teas, which is totally appropriate given its Appalachian setting. They all look similar, being represented as some colored fluid in a mason jar, and they all have different ingredients and slightly different effects, so we'll just quickly go over them. They all decrease thirst by about 20% and increase HP by 60 or so, differing really only in their effects. Steeped Ash Rose tea takes Ash Rose, a gourd, and sugar, increasing charisma by 2. Aster tea is made with aster, ginseng root, and mutated fern flower, increasing intelligence by 1. Black bloodleaf tea is, well, black in color, using honey, aster, and black bloodleaf, resulting in a beverage that increases poison resistance by 10%. For +2 perception, craft some carrot flower tea with carrot flower, honey, and melon bloom. The green-colored fern flower tea takes mutated fern flower, honey, and aster and increases strength by 2. I guess calling it fern flower tea instead of mutated fern flower tea must be some sort of wasteland marketing gimmick. Fever blossom tea doesn't sound like something you'd want to drink, but this dark red beverage is made with fever blossom, honey, and soot flower and regenerates 5 AP points per second for several seconds. Gourd blossom tea only takes gourd blossom and uses sugar instead of honey, which is not as common, giving the player +2 endurance. Substituting sugar for honey. I guess we should just be grateful we aren't adding antifreeze to any of these like some other Fallout consumables. Melon blossom tea just takes sugar and melon blooms and will increase max AP by 20 for some time. Melon blossom chai tea sounds pretty great and takes mutated fern flower, melon blossom, and spices, and increases agility by 2. Strangler bloom tea is made of honey and strangler bloom and increases rad resistance by 20 for some time, and it looks like my favorite flavor of Gatorade. Strangler pod tea is another metal band inspired tea that requires a strangler pod, sugar, and a rhododendron flower for +20 rad resistance, although it doses for 5 rads, which is more than most of the other teas. It is interesting to note that the rhododendron is a large genus of flower found in Asia and the Americas and is the state flower of West Virginia, so that is a nice little attention to detail. Tato flower tea requires tato flowers, carrot flowers, and ginseng root and increases intelligence by 2. The last of the steep teas is the thistle tea, which requires thistle, soot flower, and sugar, which results in a green liquid that boosts critical damage by 20% for a short period of time. What list of beverages would be complete without good old-fashioned water? The first of which we will look at is the water of choice for all of Adam's children, dirty water. Dirty water is water collected from any source on the surface that has not undergone any sort of purification process and as a result is always irradiated. First appearing in Fallout 3 in a dirty bottle simply labeled water, it heals for 10 points and doses for 5 rads, which is honestly not as bad as one would think. I mean, I'm not going to go chug one of these anytime soon, but I'm pretty sure just breathing in Fallout 3 will give you 5 rads. In New Vegas, it looks the same, heals for the same, but doses for 6 rads instead. It will decrease thirst by 50 points and can be purified at campfires, likely through boiling the water to eliminate the radiation. Fallout 4 makes big changes to that dirty little water, and the inclusion of a survival mode and expanded crafting mechanics causes some interesting implications. First off, the water is no longer in a glass or plastic bottle and is now in a carton, which could have initially housed any kind of liquid, and also seems way less durable with no great way to make a watertight seal. It heals for 20 HP and doses for 7 rads, and if the player has an empty bottle in their inventory, they can fill it up with water found in the environment, which will then become a dirty water in their inventory. Oddly enough, consuming the dirty water will not recover the bottle, so either the sole survivor is a maniac and eats the whole bottle, or hates the earth and is littering. If we're being honest though, I think littering might be the least of the world's concerns after almost killing itself in nuclear fire. What is interesting though is that drinking directly from a water source, something you have been able to do since Fallout 3, will actually result in different HP and rad amounts per sip. Healing for 15 HP per sip and dosing for 3 rads, drinking directly from water sources will actually be better than drinking dirty water, because you will receive fewer rads for the same amount of HP regeneration. This is doubly funny if you are getting dirty water by filling up empty bottles from a water source, since all of a sudden that dirty water has more radiation in it. And maybe this can be explained by saying that the bottle itself might be a little contaminated, which ups the overall radiation in the dirty water. In survival, however, dirty water carries a chance of disease and heals for less HP as well. This is also true for any open water sources in the world that can be drank from directly, where the HP recovery from one sip is 1.5 HP, which is a fraction of what it is normally. So drinking the HP equivalent amount of water in survival mode will cause the player to take a lot more radiation when drinking from surface water sources than from a carton of dirty water. I love myself a good old switcheroo. It is a part of dozens of recipes, and interestingly enough, if the player is active in settlement building, which often includes water pumps and other mechanisms for getting water, purified water will outnumber dirty water, since one cannot obtain dirty water from settlement water pumps or stations. Dirty water in Fallout 76 doses for 15 rads, which is higher than any other game, and maybe that's because so little time has passed between the time that the Great War occurred and when the game takes place, and healing and hydration rates are similar to Fallout 4 survival. Let's take a break from water for a bit and talk about Fallout 76's bioluminescent fluid. It can be looted from firefly and rad toad bodies, being held in a corked conical flask and glowing green. It doesn't offer much to players, decreasing thirst by 8% and dosing for 1 rad. Its real use is in the Path to Enlightenment quest, where it can be used to help attract the Mothman. If left to spoil, it will turn into spoiled biofluid, which turns a smoky color, doses for rads, which is more than the unspoiled variety, while satisfying for about the same amount of thirst. For those of you that are wondering how you could ever collect enough fluid from fireflies, the fireflies in Fallout 76 are considerably bigger, and I imagine you milk them just like how you would milk a cow, or an almond. With the surprisingly low amount of coffee options in the Wasteland, canned coffee is the only other coffee, and it is found in Fallout 76. Since it is ground and canned, it very well may not be coffee, which wouldn't make it that dissimilar to the black coffee we mentioned at the beginning of this video, which is made up of approximately, let me check my notes here real quick. Yes, 0% actual coffee. Add some water or milk to reconstitute the coffee and it will dose for 2 rads, but replenish 300 AP, which, wow, that is some potent stuff. My favorite part of all this is the warning to discontinue use of the canned coffee if a rash occurs. That is sound advice for just about anything, and I'd like to find a product that actually says, if a rash occurs, that means it's working, keep using this product. Also, a rash from coffee? I can't think of any circumstance other than allergic reactions that would lead to coffee-induced rashes. Maybe that's the evidence we need to prove that this isn't actually coffee. You know, similar to the stuff you drink at work every day. Alright, let's jump back into another type of water, and I promise these water entries are not as boring as you would imagine. Fallout 3 is the first time we encounter purified water, which is in a cleaner looking plastic bottle, but instead of being labeled as water, it is labeled as H2O, because, you know, we are just fancy like that. Maybe it is so pure that they can confidently say that it is only H2O in the bottle and absolutely nothing else. It is not very common in Fallout 3, although the Mr. Handy assistant in the player home, be it Wadsworth or Godfrey, have a condenser that will generate purified water. There are several water beggars in Fallout 3 that sit outside of the well-known communities of Rivet City, Tenpenny Tower, and Megaton, and they can very easily be exploited for an unlimited amount of good karma by giving them purified water. Fallout New Vegas has the same model and it has the same HP regeneration, sitting at 5 with, of course, no rads. In hardcore mode, it hydrates for 50 and is much more common than in the Capital Wasteland, with several locations and merchants selling purified water, and the player having the ability to craft purified water out of dirty water, likely through distillation. That seems perfectly feasible to do in Fallout 3. Distillation is not an overly complicated process. It seems like the water that is pumped, like for example in Freeside, is all purified, meaning either that the groundwater is being purified as it moves through the aquifers, which is definitely likely, or perhaps they are tapping into groundwater reserves that were in place before the Great War contaminated water for years to come. A funny side note is that the way H2O is written on these bottles is not correct per the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, as the two would need to be a subscript and not a superscript. But I feel safe saying that 0 people outside the chemistry world even care. Except for me, because I know the chemistry nerds make great friends. Fallout 4 changes the look a lot by having it in a ration-like can. That has a bunch of text that lets us know that it was bottled by the US government, and all purified water, no matter how it is made, like being harvested from settlements, will represent the purified water like this. Much like in Fallout New Vegas, water pumps will pump out purified water, with similar implications as those stated before with New Vegas. But this also makes purified water much more plentiful. Purified water can also be filled up with any empty bottle and will heal for 40 points and carry no disease chance in survival. The design of the can is very interesting because it looks similar to the canned water that was made by the McDonald and Bernier Company in 1953 in Boston, so Bethesda did some homework in this regard. Fallout 76 shows the water in the same form and is easily craftable, although it is not as easily made as boiled water, healing for 25 HP and decreasing thirst by 25%. Although there are many milk bottles found in the later Fallouts, there is no milk that can be found until Fallout 76, and that is only if Brahmin milk is similar to cow's milk, which we honestly don't really know. The milk is white, which is a good sign, and can be milked from Brahmin every 30 minutes, but only by 1 person per server. So if someone beats you to the Brahmin, you're out of luck. It heals for 10 HP, decreasing hunger by a small amount and thirst by a bit more. It is a pretty radioactive drink, dosing for 25 rads, which changes to 30 rads after the milk spoils. The hunger and thirst satiation is at the same level as good milk, but the disease chance increases by 1/3 if consumed when spoiled. Chali's milk is milk from a very specific Brahmin named, wouldn't you know it, Chali. He is Graham, the friendly super mutant's pack Brahmin, and the milk heals for a little bit more HP and decreases hunger and thirst a little more as well. That is not all though. It will increase strength by 1 for 30 minutes, giving this drink some good utility. What it is about this Brahmin that makes his milk so much better? I have no idea. It also confirms that sexual dimorphism in Brahmin is not so clear-cut, since Chali is a male that produces milk. But that's a topic that I will cover when we go over the creatures of Fallout. Cream is a consumable in Fallout 76, but it is not craftable, which is pretty surprising given the fact that we can milk Brahmin. It would follow that we could also craft cream from that milk since we can craft so many things in Fallout 76. Healing for 20 HP, it also decreases thirst by 15%, which is somehow more than normal Brahmin milk. I'm gonna have to call BS on that since one of the most dehydrating things you could ever do is drink a thing of pure cream. It also carries a fairly high disease chance, so if you find cream, you can roll the dice and see if you end up with a milk mustache or parasites. Fallout 76 has an item called Flux, which is a liquid item that the player can drink for some effects, although the real power of Flux is in crafting other items. Flux is derived from plants after they have been exposed to the radiation from a nuclear explosion, and this can be harvested by the player. It is a very unstable compound though and must pretty quickly be taken to a crafting station where it can be stabilized. If left to decay, it will become inert flux, which has no other potential benefit other than being consumed for +5 disease resistance and lowering dehydration. The different fluxes can be used to create objects like the orbital strike beacons and orbital scan beacons, as well as mutation serums and ultrasight ammo. When consumed, all fluxes will buff disease resistance by 5%, but its potential is really wasted when chugged by the player rather than being used to craft really rare items. The different fluxes are Cobalt, Crimson, Fluorescent, Violet, and Yellow Cake Flux, and the Enclave in Appalachia were the first to discover Flux after experimentation showed it could be harvested from plants after exposure to the radiation of a nuclear detonation. The whole plot of Fallout 3 follows the success of Project Purity, and even though one cannot decide to abandon the project, the player is left to decide whether to infect it with FEV, per the Enclave's plans of ridding the wasteland of mutated creatures, of which humans are also a part of, or to have the project legitimately purify water in the capital wasteland. Whatever the player decides, Aqua Pura will be considered a success and will be shipped to communities throughout the wasteland under armed Brotherhood guard. It is the same bottle as the water bottles, just with a new label that reads Aqua Pura and has a big old Brotherhood symbol on it, so everyone knows who saved their lives, or potentially infected them with FEV, depending on the player's actions. Aqua Pura will act just like purified water if it is not infected, but if it is infected, then it will apply debuffs to the player character when consumed. Consuming more than 3 bottles is enough to kill the player character immediately, but if the Lone Wanderer consumes 1, then it applies -1 to intelligence for 24 minutes and -5 to strength for 12 minutes, lessening a bit to -4 for another 6 minutes, and then lessening even more to -2 for another 6 minutes, for 24 minutes in total. It seems the effect they were trying to simulate here is that of severe weakness immediately upon consuming the water, and then a gradual recovery over time as you get your strength back. What is interesting is that when John Henry Eden is trying to convince the Lone Wanderer to go along with the plan, he promises the player that they are immune to the FEV that will be infecting the Aqua Pura. But this is obviously a lie, since it debuffs and can even kill the player. Perhaps Eden assumed the Lone Wanderer had lived in the vault his whole life and legitimately thought that the Wanderer would be safe because of a lack of radiation-induced mutations. Or he is very possibly just lying and saying what he needs to say in order to reach his end goal. Similarly, while uninfected Aqua Pura that is given to water beggars will result in good karma, infected Aqua Pura will result in evil karma when given to the beggars. According to the Fallout 3 guide, the Brotherhood does not allow any Aqua Pura to be given to the ghouls, and this is supported by the Aqua Cura scam that is being pushed in Underworld. We know the Brotherhood discriminates against ghouls, although we aren't sure if they are denied the Aqua Pura because of this, or if they know that ghouls are resistant to radiation damage, and therefore see no point in giving them non-irradiated water, since there are many people that need the pure water to survive. Lastly, Mother Curie III, who is the leader of the Apostles of the Eternal Light, will relate a story to the player if the Aqua Pura is infected. She will be given a bunch of Aqua Pura and distribute it, making her followers sick, before deciding to irradiate the water, or to use her own words, consecrate the water in Adam's light. And afterwards it no longer made people sick. This would seem to imply that the process of irradiating the water is intense enough to kill off the virus, which has interesting implications. Aqua Pura is available in Fallout 4 through the fan favorite creation club if you're needing a little bit of Fallout 3 in your Fallout 4. Fallout 76 has a rather benign sounding consumable called Sunshine Oil, which sounds like something rather light and beneficial. And while it does have some impressive stats, the recipe sounds like nightmare fuel, requiring blight, sugar bombs, and glowing blood. Yes, not just any blood will do. It will make Sunshine Oil, which buffs damage resistance by 15 and replenishes 400 AP, which is pretty incredible. While I would probably classify syrup as more of a food, it is stored in a bottle, so we're going to talk about it here. Fallout 76 lets you craft syrup from glowing resin, because apparently Canada's maple syrup reserves got nuked into oblivion. It will heal for 25 HP and increase agility by 1 by simply downing this bottle of syrup on the spot. No putting it on waffles or pancakes. Just chug that jug like the animal you are and somehow become more agile. I love video game logic. Bawls energy drink is something that should never be included in a list of Fallout consumables, but here we are. Featuring in Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, the game goes through a tortuous path of justification as to why this is the only drink found in the game and Nuka-Cola is completely absent. Citing that neither Nuka-Cola nor any other soft drink competitor wanted to try and compete with Bawls in Texas, where the game takes place, as well as Bawls only wanting to market their products in Texas, this item can be consumed and heal for 1/4 to 2/5 of the player's total health. I mean, I think that justification is perfectly sound. After all, why would a company want to waste their efforts trying to sell products to one of the largest and most populous states in the country? That's like business 101. The in-game depiction looks very close to the real-world bottles, and even though I thought Bawls was no longer available, I saw some at a Smith's not too long ago, and they even have a root beer flavored one, which was honestly not bad. So when I eventually do my Let's Play Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, I will be sure to try and do it with an ice-cold Bawls in my hand. Bawls. Aqua Cura is to Aqua Pura, like the Fallout 76 nylon bag was to the promised 76 canvas bag. The water is a fake ripoff of the Pura, which should be kind of obvious because it looks exactly like the dirty water that is laying around everywhere. It is hawked just outside the underworld to unsuspecting ghouls by another ghoul named Griffin with the most luscious hair you have ever seen. Similar to the 19th century snake oil salesman, he talks a big game promoting the Cura, calling it an Elixir of Life, which is funny because we just talked about that drink from Fallout Tactics a bit earlier. Some of the extraordinary claims that he makes about the water is that it helps improve sleep, improves eyesight, improves hearing, helps concentration, reverses radiation poisoning, removes stains, promotes hair growth, relieves side effects of mentat use, specifically dry mouth, which, like, duh, it's water, induces love, prevents bullying, and best of all, will cure ghoul skin problems in just 5 minutes. Such a specific claim sounds like it could be very easily tested and verified. Griffin's operation consists of procuring Aqua Pura from the Brotherhood, then stashing the Pura away to sell at higher prices to groups that the Brotherhood does not want to provide Pura to, like raiders and slavers. He then sells his Cura, giving the impression that he is selling the water he receives from the Brotherhood as he should, when really he is just selling plain old dirty water. The player can only buy 2 bottles of Cura from Griffin, and for some reason Aqua Cura is worth more than Aqua Pura at all traders. So it looks like his sales pitch has been quite successful. It heals for 10 HP just like dirty water and has 1 more rad, dosing the player with 6 upon consumption. Fallout 3 isn't quite done with its many kinds of water just yet because we have the holiest of them all, appropriately called Holy Water. The Apostles of the Holy Light, a sect of the children of Adam, get Aqua Pura that is meant to go to Megaton, and irradiate the water with Adam's holy light. With Aqua Pura that is not infected with FEV, it will heal for 20 HP and irradiate for 15 rads, which is more than any other kind in Fallout 3. But I was honestly thinking it would be a lot more since it is being irradiated on purpose. If the Aqua Pura is infected with FEV, then the holy water will decrease intelligence by 1 and strength by 2, while still irradiating for 15, which is not as bad as the effects of the non-irradiated Aqua Pura. If the Aqua Pura is infected with FEV, it will decrease intelligence by 1 and strength by 2, while still irradiating for 15. And while this isn't quite as bad as the effects of non-irradiated FEV Aqua Pura, It is stackable, so be careful. I had previously talked about how the infected Aqua Pura was making members of the Apostles of the Holy Light sick, and after Mother Curie started irradiating the water, it stopped making people sick. The holy water, even though it is irradiated, does not debuff the player as extreme as the normal FEV Aqua Pura. So this has very interesting implications for the interaction between FEV and radiation. We have the last of the teas from Fallout 76, that include sweet teas and so-called infused teas. Sweet blackberry tea is made with wild blackberries, starlight berries, and sugar, and will replenish AP by 200. Labrador tea is a bit more special because we get a little bit of backstory, as the recipe comes from a pre-war woman who would use the tea to relieve constipation and feel better when unhappy. I can't help but think that those two things are related. Made with starlight berries, rhododendron flowers, and honeycomb instead of honey or sugar, it will make a tea that heals for 40 HP and restores 300 AP, which is very impressive. Labrador teas are traditionally made from rhododendron flowers, and even though I have never had this kind of tea, I would definitely like to try it out. Sweet mute fruit teas require mute fruit, sugar, and starlight berries, and will increase critical damage by 20% for some time. Infused bloodleaf tea needs bloodleaf, of course, while also requiring potatoes and ginseng root, and will increase disease resistance by 20 points. Infused soot flower tea requires soot flower, starlight berries, and pepper, which is the first tea to use that and adds 20 to max AP. Going over all these teas, a good number of them share effects, and I think that even though Bethesda could give us so many kinds of teas, they never thought about if they should. Maybe having multiple options to increase max AP is preferred by most players, but I know for myself that giving me a bunch of recipes that have the same effects is a sure way to make me care less about trying to craft these multitude of teas. Fallout New Vegas gives us just plain old irradiated water that will heal similar to dirty water and have the same dehydration effects as dirty water in survival mode. But this one has 16 rads of radiation, which makes them even more irradiated than the holy water, which was irradiated on purpose. This is one of the least common forms of water in the Mojave, and most of it can be found at Camp Searchlight that experienced a dirty bomb attack by the Legion, irradiating the area heavily. Company Tea is a very interesting sounding tea from Fallout 76. It is a combination of the before mentioned Labrador tea, whiskey, Nuka-Cola, and cream, which sounds like a crazy combination. Not gross crazy, just I would never think to combine such things in 100 years kind of crazy. It has really strong buffs like recovering 10 AP per second for 60 minutes and invoking a 20% disease resistance for 60 minutes as well. Like a lot of crafted items that include alcohol, the addiction chance to alcohol does not apply for whatever reason. The ingredients list is so specific for this tea that I looked to see if there was a real-world company tea or something that included these ingredients, but I came up empty-handed. Anyone know of a real-life counterpart to this tea? Granny's tea is a tea recipe from the pre-war that includes cranberries, soot flower, and, get this, sugar bombs. I just find it funny that this pre-war recipe, and not some post-war concoction where people are just combining things that they find laying around. I don't know what possesses someone to want to combine some pretty reasonable tea ingredients and then throw the Fallout equivalent of Lucky Charms in there too. This tea will cause a small but noticeable health regeneration effect outside of the normal HP boost that applies for some time, which, along with the company tea, are the only teas that do that. How about we talk a bit more about water? The number one choice of water for creeps everywhere, drugged water, is every bit as nefarious as it sounds. Found only in Fallout 4 and in only one location within the game, it was used by Hallucinogen Incorporated to drug test subjects with a sedative to make them more compliant and willingly undergo the pretty messed up drug tests that they were conducting at their facility in Boston. It will heal for 20 HP and dose for 7 rads, but will also decrease perception by 1. It is one of the few water variants that will stack effects as well, so if you feel like getting experimented on against your will, head on over to Boston and drink up. Fallout 76 introduces boiled water, which is distinct from purified water. While it is never explicitly stated, Fallout New Vegas seems to imply that purified water is made from boiling the water and likely using some sort of distillation process. Fallout 76 draws a distinction, and purified water can only be made with a filter, while boiled water is a step down in terms of health effects when compared to the purified water. Boiled water will heal the same amount of HP, but doesn't carry disease risk that the dirty water carries. It does, however, have a little bit of radiation, although it is not as much as dirty water, so purified is still the way to go. Institute bottled water is found in the Institute and looks similar to the can that Purified Water comes in, but it has a unique Institute logo on it, rather than the Purified Water label. It also confirms on the back that it is clean water that has undergone remineralization and doesn't have any radiation. It then seems to be signed by some sort of manager as proof of the cleanliness. It has the same healing effects and survival effects as Purified Water, but for whatever reason is less valuable when trading with merchants. Maybe everyone's afraid it'll turn them into a synth. Fallout New Vegas' Honest Hearts DLC has a strong and bitter tasting tea made from the Datura root that is used in rituals. When the player drinks it, they begin hallucinating with visual effects similar to being poisoned, and after traveling to a specific location, will find the ghost of Shi, which is a flaming Yao Guai that the player is meant to put to rest. The effects of the tea wear off after completing the quest. The real-life Datura root has been used historically by Native Americans for spiritual purposes as it has strong psychoactive effects, although this is after many years of use and application. The Datura family of plants is very large and they do not all have the same effects, meaning that it is very easy to mistakenly take one that can cause health complications. This is a really cool inclusion and a nice detail in the DLC that focuses so heavily on the tribalistic people of the Fallout series. The Oasis in Fallout 3 is the only place in the Capital Wasteland where vegetation grows in abundance, and, as the player comes to find out, this is due to the presence of the Fallout icon Harold being stuck in place as the tree that grew in his head has now entombed him and stuck him to the ground. He is worshipped by a group of people called Tree Minders that have received a command to let the Lone Wanderer speak to Harold. But before that can happen, the player must drink a so-called sap. This is, according to them, to rid the player of all evil and make him worthy to speak to Harold, but also causes the player to get woozy and pass out. No effects are applied to the character, and it seems like this is something that just makes the player have an altered state of mind and a sedative-like effect, and once it is done, it is never spoken of again, nor is the player able to drink the sap again. I have some suspicions about the sap though, because I'm pretty sure it comes from Harold, just like everything else in the Oasis, and I don't like those implications. Toxic water is a water that is found in Fallout 76 that is not all that common, but is the most damaging of all the waters we have spoken of. It can only be collected from specific locations that have toxic water, often shown as a reddish-brown body of water, and once collected, it cannot be boiled or purified in any way, so you are just stuck with the toxic water. It doses the player with 30 rads and has a high disease chance of 18% every time one is consumed. You would really only drink it when you are very desperate, but it is a component of a few recipes for Mystery Meat Pie, the Mirelurk Boil, and Rad Stag Redemption, which if you can't even boil off the crap that's in this water, why are we putting it in our food? So we have a few beverages that are mention only. Nuka Floats are a pre-war dessert combining Nuka Cola and ice cream, but it is not attainable in-game. This is kind of a bummer since a Nuka Wild Float sounds like it would be awesome. A cranberry latte is mentioned as a pre-war drink item in Fallout 76, because if anything references cranberries in Fallout, you know it is a Fallout 76 consumable. And Veronica from Fallout New Vegas will sarcastically order an atomic shake in-game, but we don't ever get any details on whether this is a real thing or not. Alright, I saved the best for last. The one thing that I saw on this list and thought to myself, why though? Tick blood is a consumable beverage? The player can drink it straight for no other benefit than some small HP replenishment and hydration, but it has a high disease chance and 15 rads. I just want to know under what circumstances would someone be down to bleed out a giant engorged tick and just start drinking that blood? Fallout has some seriously weird issues with consuming blood, like from blood packs, and now even worse, from giant ticks. What the fuck? Congrats on making it through 50 different kinds of Fallout 76 tea. You know what you deserve? Another Fallout 76 tea. Just kidding. A comment highlight. From my previous video, which was the third and final video on the melee weapons of Fallout, we have up first David Francisco that lets us know that the Buzz Blade is not able to be spawned as a legendary because it is missing the keywords necessary to apply the legendary mods. The part that I don't know, however, is whether this was on purpose or just an accident, because if it was a mistake, seems like a pretty easy fix to push in one of the many updates Fallout 4 had. Many of you talked about the inspirations behind the auto axe, and people thought it was some sort of modified chop saw, angle grinder, or concrete saw, and I definitely can see any of those as the base inspiration. I'm still wanting to know what parts of cars are used in the manufacture of new auto axes though. Wyatt Kefauver let me know that Grognak's axe is identical to an axe used by a barbarian in the Art of Oblivion as part of the class selection in the tutorial. Chalk that up as another Elder Scrolls Easter egg. Many of you brought up a great point that I completely missed when asking why there seems to be so many Chinese officer swords in the Wasteland, and it is totally possible that most of them are war trophies. Taking such trophies is a very well-known practice from every war that has ever been fought, and a nice Chinese officer sword would have been quite the prize as an American soldier. Would also be a decent weapon when the world went to complete hell after the bombs dropped. Good catch there, guys. Dakota Fogarty made a great point that is rather ingenious about the pool cue in Fallout New Vegas. After getting the jury rigging perk, the pool cue can be used to repair a good number of two-handed weapons. And since they are so commonly found and they are light, carrying a few in your inventory is a good way to always be sure you can repair your melee weapon when the condition gets too low. Several of you commented on the use of skis as swords, and some of you theorized that they probably wouldn't be too bad as swords. Realistically, I can see the metal on the ski being sharpened and used a limited number of times against unarmored targets, but I don't think the metal is thick enough to hold an edge for long, nor would it have the ability to penetrate armor, while also lacking the heft of a full metal sword. But hey, sounds like a good excuse to commission a ski sword and test it out. You know, for science. A few of you mentioned the Fallout 4 and 76 Super Sledge having a thicker yellow portion at the bottom of the shaft that looks like it could hold the fuel for the rocket. I think that's totally possible, and with it being so distinct from the rest of the handle, I can see that being the original design idea. I would have to say the amount of fuel that would be stored in a volume that small probably wouldn't let the rocket engine last too long, and obviously we have never seen the Soul Survivor apply any fuel to the Super Sledge, so all we have are guesses. This guy, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce, let me know that there are beta animations where Doc Mitchell holds up the Inkblot images that were not used in the final game, and this is probably the reason for the test's inclusion as a melee weapon in the base game. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky II. Alright guys, murder my pronunciation in chat please. Several of you mentioned that you thought that the meteoric sword was a reference to Sokka's sword from Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was also made out of meteoric metals, and is a similar Chinese design. The only real difference being that it is black or dark gray, rather than having the cool heterogeneous texture that it does. Ryan Bush asked about a weapon, the Nuka Breaker, and if he just somehow missed its inclusion in a previous video. And, well, I'm not going to try and gaslight you to save my own ego, I totally missed it. So, here you go. Included in the Gunrunners add-on, the Nuka Breaker is a repurposed Nuka-Cola sign that still lights up, somehow, through some portable electric source. The sign is now used to beat the piss out of whatever's in your way, requiring 9 strength, which is a steep requirement, but doing 50 damage, with a bonus critical chance that it will electrocute the target, adding bonus electrical damage. Although it is technically a reskinned rebar club, it has surprisingly high durability for something that was never meant to break skulls, and is sold at the Gunrunners vendor or at Mick and Ralph's. This weapon is a not so subtle nod to the fan-made video series Nuka Break, and things got even more meta when Nuka Break included the Nuka Breaker in the 5th and 6th episodes. That is the fan service I love to see. Thanks for reminding me about this, Ryan. Notorious Scoundrel let me know that Fallout 76 does indeed let you bash enemies with binoculars. So let's test this on an innocent, defenseless, furry little creature. Yep, well, he was right. Sorry, Possum. My video, that's not confusing at all, asked me a direct question, asking whether or not he could expect to see gameplay videos as Let's Plays or streams. I guess this is as good a time as any to let you guys know that there's a very good chance I will be able to focus more of my time on my YouTube channel in a few months. This will allow me to do some things I've been wanting to do for the last little while, like Let's Play videos, a Discord channel, and a few other things. And more than just the 2 videos a month that I do right now. As some of you old timers in my channel probably know, I work full time as a data analyst, and these videos are my hobby, and doing 2 videos a month is my max right now since I have family obligations, a full-time job, and another hobby that requires some attention. I will be sure to let you all know in due time any good developments related to my channel and its content though. Thank you for joining me in another video, and be sure to leave me suggestions in the comments for future content. Take care of yourselves, and walk in Adam's holy glow.